Welcome to Female Fluence. We are a place of woman empowering women. This is a safe environment where females are not judged nor afraid to flourish. My goal is to help you live an energized life of balance, whether as a mom, a wife, or in your profession. It is time to have self-worth and self-compassion. Live in the present moment and surround yourself with only healthy connections. So join me, Promash Shur, a woman empowerment life coach, an educator, and a mother of three, to help take you on a journey of true identity and inspiration. Listeners, today we are in for a treat, but please be advised that this episode may contain some explicit content unsuitable for children, so take note to listen to this episode without the kids around. We are going to be talking about passion. In life, passion serves as a vital force. Some passions intervene with our very essence, becoming inseparable from our identity. When that passion wanes, a sense of unease may grip us. Anxiety or deep despondency might accompany the realization that activity or love that once defined us is slipping away. The absence of passion raises stress levels and heightens the risk of burnout. We understand that passion ignites creativity, so its absence can dim our creative spark. Moreover, a lack of enthusiasm can strain personal relationships. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with best-selling author and esteemed passion coach, Jacquie Somerville. She will guide us in the transcending into our own optimal selves. Jacquie asserts that the fusion of love, sensuality, and romance is a potent source of energy and motivation. We will unlock our immense potential by embracing and leveraging this power, unveiling pathways to opportunity and greatness. This journey leads us to our most inventive and fulfilled selves. Embracing our allure, confidence, and creativity is pivotal to unleashing our brilliance, radiating a blend of allure and sophistication. Jacquie Somerville stands as a beacon of intrigue, a best-selling author, passion coach, public speaker, and co-founder of the Most Powerful Woman mentorship program. She embodies a captivating duality of naughty, of course, and nice at the same time. As a speaker, she captivates the audience, offering her wisdom to those eager to embrace the sexy confidence and cultivates a life brimming with passion, love, and prosperity. As a mentor, she guides her clients towards spicy and exhilarating experiences, fostering stronger, more affectionate relationships. As a success coach, she advocates for the transformative power of love, sensual sex, and a heartfelt romance and unlocking our fullest potential. Prepare to be enthralled as she takes us on a daring and delightful journey. With her, we will explore the realms of naughtiness and indulge in some fun. Jacquie, welcome to Female Fluence. I'm so excited to have you here. Let our adventure begin today.
Hi, Pearl. I'm so thrilled to be here with you. Thank you. And wow, that was the most thoughtful, researched introduction on the subject of passion I've ever heard. So thank you for that. Wow,
Of
that's really
course. Of
great.
course. Well, after I discovered you and I have been reading all your information, I just realized that passion is really important. Like, we are not really taking it seriously, whether it's passion for our work, our life, our loved ones. And it's kind of made me look at things a different way because you kind of brought that to my attention. So that's why I kind of,
Yeah.
looked
Oh,
deeper
oh
into it.
gosh, that gives me goosies hearing that. Thank you. Yes, it is this thing that has been sidelined and in society in general, it's kind of considered to be something that should be secondary. And in actual fact, we're missing out on so much by not putting it right in front of things and realizing the power of it.
Yeah, because I do feel like we kind of lose that spark of life if we were just passionless in
Yeah.
anything that we do. Tell us about yourself and then some of your darkest moments in life that actually helped you move along and provide the foundation of where you are today, because as we know, pain can actually become our purpose. So I feel like some of that is related to how you are where you are right now.
Yeah, I mean, the word passion actually comes from the Latin word pain, which
There
is
you
kind
go.
of interesting that you'd bring that up. Yeah. Yes, I mean, like everyone who's listening, I'm sure I've been through some dark times, and along this journey, the most, I would say, impactful thing that happened to me was related to passion and love, in that I was deeply in love with a much younger man who I married in a very romantic, amazing ceremony in Las Vegas. And it was just, oh gosh, it was a very passionate, amazing love affair. And then there was 6 months after our wedding, a tragedy happened, and it took us down this horrific hole, which hasn't actually ended for him yet. He had a terrible car accident, and somebody else died in the accident, and he was blamed for it. And I was the breadwinner, and it cost me my fortune, let's just say, for the most part, to try to save him, to try to defend him, and to defend myself against lawsuits, because when you have money, and in my case, I had at the time millions of dollars, people will look for a way to sue you.
Hmm.
And I wasn't prepared emotionally, mentally, and spiritually for all of that to happen in my life. And the beauty that came out of that was so much. But I would say that the number one thing was, for me, was spiritual awakening, was that I realized that what I really needed was this relationship with divine intelligence, call it what you will, God, that was missing in my life. Not that I had turned my back on it, but I wasn't connected. I wasn't living my life in this connected way, living in the flow of life, trusting the
Hmm.
flow of life. It was, oh my God, there's a huge calamity. Now, how am I going to get through this, and how am I going to fix this? And while on the surface, people thought that I had it all together and was dealing with it, I really wasn't. Whereas if I'd had this relationship with some source, with the God within, as it were, I would have handled it very differently, and I believe come out of it very differently. So it was my wake-up call, and it changed my life in so many ways, that being the number one thing, because to me, that's the thing that is the most important to me now, and is the key to everything else in life, money and love and everything else. For me personally, it's that relationship with life. And so there was that came from it. But the other thing is that I learned that love is unconditional. And I guess, even though I had not really said it out loud, it was really always conditional for me. And I guess it is for most people.
Hmm.
It is conditional. As long as everything is going more or less the way you
Good.
expect it to
Right.
go, right? Uh, but then we just like throw our hands up and give up on something. And when something so radical happened, and I was forced to love somebody in the face of so much external scrutiny
Yeah.
and just everything that happened, I learned this incredible thing of love. And that love doesn't mean you have to cohabit with somebody or continue to live with them or be with them. You can love them and let them go. But it's that love, living in that space of love, no matter what, that really makes life worth living and makes life so much easier. So I learned so much from it. Not the least of all was unconditional love and the meaning of true love. And, there's this great part of one of the poet Rumi's poems where he says, "The sun never says to the earth, 'You owe me.' Look what happens
Wow.
with a love like that. It lights up the whole sky."
That's beautiful. I
Isn't
love
it?
Rumi. Yeah.
Yes, me too. And I thought, wow, that's real love. It never says you owe me. It's never quid pro quo. It's never tit
Yeah.
for tat, 50-50. It's none of that.
I did this
And
for you. You do this for me. Right. Right.
yeah, and I learned that the hard way through such a sort of a calamity, as it were. Anyway, so many things came out of it. And he was a great, passionate love of mine. And it was the best sex I'd ever had in my life. And I learned truly in that relationship the meaning of how passion can bring out your potential and your genius. Because I was so in love and so sparked up on it that I wrote a best-selling book from cover to cover in 6 weeks, because I channeled that passion. Anyway, I'm sure we'll get into that, but so much came out of that relationship that I wouldn't actually have it any other way, as hard and as brutal as it was, the trauma and the tragedy and the heartache. Wow, it's, it was a life-changing.
That just seems so deep and so powerful. And I feel like, yeah, you're right. As difficult as it was, you were meant to have this experience, this journey, this love of your life to be who you are today. So that was your path. And
Yeah,
no matter how difficult it was.
yeah, exactly right. Exactly. And so, before that, I had just become an author. I'd written my first book just before I met him. I wrote the second book, as I say, in 6 weeks, because I was so hyped up on love. I've been coaching for, I think, about 15 years now. My coaching is, a lot of it is on love and passion and romance. I've helped a lot of women fall in love and find love maybe in their later years, for the most part, although I've worked with younger people too. Now, I do a lot of work with men, and speak to a lot of men and interact with a lot of men. I have a lot of male followers, and I'm creating a course for younger men, and then a course for older women, on attracting love and navigating the online space and all of that. Yeah, so much has come out of all of this. So that's what I'm all about. I think that's probably enough on what I'm all about.
A lot of times I feel like usually females go and say, okay, like I'm lacking this in my relationship. I need to fix it. So I love how you're addressing both male and female because, in a relationship, both of the people need to actually know what's wrong or what's lacking. So for you to kind of address that with, the society of men as well is really, really vital in a relationship.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I do see such a need, especially amongst younger men, to help them build their confidence and
Yes.
navigate uh, being, in love or in lust or both or one or the other in today's world. Is very difficult for
Yeah.
them, and some of them don't deal with it very well, as we know, and society bears the consequences of that.
Now I know you've always felt challenged by societal pressures of what's like expected of women and what women should do. So you were surrounded growing up by many women who kind of give up on their life, as you say it. They were like peacemakers. They just went with the flow and they did what was expected of them as a society. But many of those were not your dreams, like being married and having kids and living in the white picket fence and all of that. So can you tell me more about this, like your actual real dreams growing up and why you felt that they were never accepted by society and you kind of had to kind of fight for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just grew up surrounded, as you say, by women who uh, had maybe some semblance of a career before they got married, or just came straight out of nursing school or whatever and got married right away. And it wasn't that I had an issue with. It was watching how the men in my larger sort of family circle they were autocratic rulers, and I would look at these women keeping the peace and uh, taking on the role of just being the person who held the family together, and any other gifts and talents they had to be suppressed, to do that for decades or their whole lives in most cases. And I don't think they felt like they were giving up anything, because I don't think they really knew that they had much of a choice, or maybe
Right.
they didn't even want it. Maybe because they were so conditioned, and we all so conditioned, that they didn't even realize that maybe they had hidden things. But as a young girl looking in, I felt like they did. And I just couldn't stand the way these men could be in a bad mood, could misbehave, could do whatever. And the women seemed to always be keeping the peace. I just remember thinking, I don't want that for my life. I don't want to have a man, because it put me off the whole idea of having a man and getting married and all of that. Because I thought, well, if this is what it is, I don't want it.
I don't want any part of it.
Yeah, exactly. But I was asked continuously, my darling, do you have a boyfriend yet? when are you going to get married? And when you get married and when you have children. And I kept thinking, why are they saying when? What if I don't want
Don't
to?
want to, yeah.
Where is the word if you choose to, the words if you choose to? And I kept thinking, why aren't we replacing when you get married and when you have children with if you get married and if you choose to get married and if you have children? And I knew from a teenager, actually, my father reminded me of this just about 10 years ago. He was already, an old man, and we were talking about it. And he said, "Oh my gosh, you knew when you were a teenager, you had no interest in children. You've known it like your whole life." Um, and having children just wasn't an interest of mine. I mean, I get that it's a huge thing for the majority of
Right.
people. It just wasn't for me. But you are looked at as being weird for having those outside of the
Yeah.
norm views. And it's not as though I think there's anything wrong with any of it. I just think that embracing choice, we need to become better at that, because
Yes.
even in today's society, we still very much. I see when somebody loses a child, I'm always fascinated how the first thing they say is, "I'm never going to see him or her walk down the aisle." And I think to
Oh, you're
myself,
right. You are actually right.
wow, why is
Yeah.
that the thing that comes to your mind? It's so interesting because it's so much a part of the
Yes.
dream, and it's very much a part of our society. And I just want us to question that a little bit. And yeah, it's just something I've noticed and something I've found it quite challenging to buck against, because most people think, poor thing, she maybe never got asked, or maybe she doesn't have the choice, or
Yeah, they don't
uh,
realize that it's actual your own choice. I think that's the
yes,
key, is that we need to make everyone in society more aware that we as women have choices. We don't need to follow exactly the steps or the stories that have been told through generations and generations. That's what's expected of us.
exactly right. And it makes it even harder for women who can't have children who want uh, to feel okay about it.
Hmm.
I think that's the divine, that's the universe saying, there's something else for your life.
Yep.
There's some child who needs to be rescued by you. There's a child who needs to be adopted or taken care of, or there's something else for you that's not your biological child. And yet they get made to feel like they're a failure and so on. It's fascinating how we still think about these things. So anyway,
It's
that's my
very
long
true.
answer
But I
to the
love the
question.
fact that as a young girl, you were already so empowered and you knew a lot more than the people around you. So that shows why you're such an empowered coach right now, because you knew.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I've always been, my father calls me a stroppy child, is what he's always called me, even now.
So I know you are very spiritual and intuitive, and you just had this need that you needed to find your purpose in life. You stated that even when your basic needs were taken care of at a point in your life, you just felt like there was this like untapped potential within you, and if you didn't actually tap into it, it was going to drive you crazy. So how did you know you have this untapped potential, and how can others kind of check into it and realize that it's there, and why it's important that for us not to ignore it, because it will kind of bother us through life.
Yeah, I think you know it because you're frustrated. It's frustration, the feeling of, what am I going to do now, or dissatisfaction with your life that drives you crazy. I mean, I was at a point where I had a man who loved me. I had lots and lots of money. I had multiple homes around the world. I was living the life of Riley. And I remember waking up, looking out at I was at my ranch house, looking out at this beautiful property with my horses grazing in front of me, and the lake glistening, and just feeling so empty inside. And then feeling like, what is wrong with me that I could
Hmm.
feel this empty when I have everything everybody else wants? I must be some kind of a crazy lunatic. And then you start all the negative self-talk about, what is wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. And I remember, I think it was my life coach at the time, read Marianne Williamson's famous quote or prose from A Return to Love, where she talks about letting your own light shine and giving others permission to do the same. Are you familiar with that incredible piece?
No, no. but
And
I'm
I just,
curious.
yeah, you should look it up. I don't have it near me right now. I would not do it justice, but um, my life coach sent me that, and I remember just thinking, I have a light inside of me. I have things that I'm supposed to do in the world, and
Hmm.
I was that girl who never wanted to be at the mercy of a man, and here I am
Right.
10 years living with a very wealthy man and living this life. And it's not as though I didn't contribute greatly to that. I did. But essentially, that's where my stability and my wealth came from, was from putting all my faith in him, not my faith in myself and God. And this started to just eat me up. And I realized when your basic needs are met and you are not at least pursuing your
Hmm.
potential,
You're not happy.
you are as frustrated as all hell. It's so fascinating. And when your basic needs are not met, that's your 100% focus. So that's a different story. You know,
Right.
when you're in survival mode, or when you're trying to just make it, or put a roof over your head, whatever, that's a different story. That passion comes from that too. But when your basic needs are met and you're not pursuing, at least pursuing your potential, and I knew I was a great storyteller.
Yeah.
I knew that I had books in me. I knew that storytelling, I created my own one-woman show, and I did a 90-minute monologue on the stage, which was very popular. And I sold, many tens of thousands of books doing that, because people just loved the story and they wanted more. And so I knew every time I'd have a dinner party, everyone would sit in rapt attention at my stories. And I've had a very storied life, because I've done a lot of things. I've immigrated multiple times, and I've been broke and rich and fat and thin, and you name it, I've been there. Well, I wouldn't say thin, slim maybe. So I have stories, and I realize that when I'm telling my stories, I'm alive and the audience is alive. And
And people
I
love to
don't,
listen to you. You actually, I
yeah.
love listening to you. So you are a
Oh, thank
storyteller.
you. Thank you. Yeah, so I realized that I didn't just want to tell my friends the stories at dinner. I wanted something more, a bigger
Right.
stage.
No, that
Yeah.
really, the untapped potential, it really is so true, because if you look about, you hear every day, like you have really wealthy or famous people in the world, and you hear that they've killed themselves because they have been in severe depression all this time. So they're putting on this act, but within themselves, they are just, they're not even living their purpose. They're not fulfilled. They're not happy. So it doesn't matter the Lamborghini, the house by the beach. None of that at the end matters if you are not really filling up and living your fulfilled life.
Yes, exactly right. Doing something in the world that makes you feel like I did my best today.
Mhm.
And that could be a wife and a mom. That really can be. Like people who love to be a wife and a mother, if they put their heart and soul into it and do a brilliant job, and it is their calling, that is so fulfilling and amazing.
Exactly.
They are fulfilling their purpose every day. It's whatever it is that we feel we can enthusiastically go at 100% and give it our all, even when we fail at it. That's what it is. That's when we're pursuing our potential.
Yes, yes, for sure. Now, earlier you mentioned, I know you wrote one of your books cover to cover in 6 weeks because you were channeling this amazing energy that you had in the desire you had for one of the greatest loves in your life. So the combination of passion, sex, and unconditional love helped you write this book. Tell us more. How did you do this? Where is this energy? Where did it come from?
So, I'm a self-development, personal development junkie. I've read every book known to man and studied all the seminars and studied with all the greats and everything. And of course, I've read Think and Grow Rich numerous times by Napoleon Hill. I'm sure you're familiar with the
Yes,
book.
I have. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a chapter in that book called Sex Transmutation, where he talks about the greatest of all human desires is the desire for sex. And when it's combined with romance and with love, it can lift you up into your zone of genius like nothing else on earth. And so it was totally fascinating to me when I was so in love with this beautiful man, And I would wake up early, as I always do, 5 in the morning. And of course, he was 29 at the time. He was still sleeping in. And I would just look at him and my dog snuggled up in bed, and I would just have this love in my heart and this lust and everything else. And of course, he was asleep, so I couldn't act on any of that. So I would just go through to the living room, pour myself a lovely espresso, and sit in my favorite chair with my computer on my lap, and I would write like a maniac because I was so in my zone of genius from this incredible experience of love, sex, and romance that I was channeling in that moment. And having sex and enjoying him afterwards. But the first few hours of the morning, while there was that anticipation of it, channeling that energy
Wow.
into the pages was everything. And Napoleon Hill said, even the memories of great love and passion can lift us into our zone of genius, even the memories. And so even now, he is still my muse in much of my work, especially when I'm writing. It's a very interesting thing. While I am so in love with the man that I live with, and he is my love, and I can't imagine being with anybody else, that passionate relationship still acts as my muse when it comes to writing. Go figure.
That is incredible. Now I have to figure out this zone of genius of mine when it comes on. I'm going to be searching for it.
Yes, I mean, he calls them mind stimulants, right? And Napoleon Hill, and he lists the top 10 or whatever in the book, and the number one is the desire for sex, and then there's love and romance and all of that. And when you think about it, for me, running, exercise, I get some of my most amazing ideas when I'm running. It sparks that. There's so many other things. People can get it from maybe a cocktail or microdosing. People experiment with all of that stuff. Meditation.
Yes.
There's positive ways to do it, and there's destructive ways to do it. But we all know that feeling. You can get
Yes.
hyped up on something. People get hyped up on shopping, or you feel that feeling. Now, if there are healthy and wonderful ways that you can get to that feeling, that's the
Yes.
feeling you're after. That's the zone of genius.
Right.
That's when you don't even know
And if you
time is passing.
know that the key is though to know that you're there and to channel that energy the correct way, right? Instead of like going and like shopping like crazy because you feel this, you power and you're excited and you have a high energy. So just to learn that this is your zone of geniusness and this is what you're going to do with it. With you write a book. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so anyway, I mean, there's so much research done on this. I'm trying to think of the great book by Jamie Wheel and Stephen Kotler, Stealing Fire,
Okay.
which was all about how do we tap into our zone of genius and sustain it for as long as possible and actually make it work for us. So there's so much research out there, but I experienced this very thing firsthand, as I say, when I wrote that book and when, I was just high, completely high on love.
High on love. Wow. So, Jacquie, what is love to you and what is attachment and why are they not the same thing? Or are they?
Ooh, ooh. I would have said very different things. And I believe there is some level of attachment in a committed relationship, because you can't just go through it saying, oh well, c'est la vie, I love no matter what. In order to cohabit with somebody,
Hmm.
you have to have communication. You have to sort some things out. So it's a little bit more complicated than one thing or the other.
Okay.
But true love is loving someone without requiring them to change.
Yes. Which is so hard, right?
Yes. So that is loving the person, but being unattached to how they live their life. Now, in the case of some of the people I've loved in my life that have been destructive, I have had to love them without requiring them to change, but removing myself geographically from that situation for my own, whether it's your own safety, whether it's your sanity or whatever, right?
Right.
Not everybody who you love you're supposed to live with or
Right.
commit to or create a life with. And that, so that brings me to the other thing I find so often is people think of love as only a long-term thing. And we talk about loving our neighbors, loving humanity, love is what makes the world go round, all of this. But when it comes to romantic love, we're like, it only counts if it lasts 60 years or whatever,
Right.
which is so bizarre. I have loved many people I've spent one night with or one weekend with or one day with. Many people. Deep love and connection. And letting it go and letting it be just exactly what it was meant to be, i.e., that one day or whatever, or that one vacation, is the most beautiful thing and loving thing I know to do for myself and that person. And acknowledging that we felt tremendous love in that moment.
In that
And that
moment.
love can exist in a moment, and that moment can continue to inspire you for the rest of your life if you let it. So I feel like I have shared such deep love with people I've had very brief relationships with. And I have so much reverence and I don't know, I look back on all of that with such love in my heart and gratitude that it happened. Dr. Seuss famously said, "Don't cry when something ends, but smile because it happened." Something like that. You know that quote? I'm
Yes,
messing it up.
I
It's along
love
those
Dr.
lines.
Seuss. He has some of the best quotes.
Yeah, don't cry because it's no longer, but smile because it happened in the first place. And
Right.
that's how I look at all the relationships I've had. I'm like, wow, I am so blessed to have had
So
these
so much
encounters.
gratitude for all of them, and because it's part
Yes.
of you, it's changed you. So I guess pretty much, love and attachment are not the same thing because a lot of the times, you can love them and you don't have to be so attached and you're not needy. You don't need that, but you have that love in your heart and that's a separate thing. But a lot of times people really mix them up and they get so attached or so obsessed or possessive and
Oof,
that's what
yeah.
causes the relationship to spiral in the wrong direction.
Yes. Absolutely. It's possessiveness and all of that is not good. And no, you're right. I mean, I'm able to let things go, but I do believe in a committed relationship has to be some level of effort made in order to create harmony and have an amazing life
Right.
together that is more than just c'est la vie, you do you, I'll do me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think if you're in a like a long-term set relationship, then you need to have some sort of that or else, if you have
It's
no commitment.
unsustainable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. You
exactly.
can't sustain that. You're completely right.
Yeah.
So my next question is how can we live a passionate life that inspires creativity and catapults us into a life of purpose and fulfillment at the same time?
Hmm. Well, passion comes from a number of things. If one is not experiencing passion in your life right now, there's a few things I suggest. First of all, write down what you're curious about. Where are the itches in your life you haven't scratched? Going down paths of curiosity can lead you to some amazing places. People get very stuck in comfort. Being outside of your comfort zone
Hmm.
is a surefire way to feel passionate. For me, when it comes to business, starting my business, being successful in business, all of that, I needed to be in a place where my back was against the wall and there was a gun to my head. And that was passion, boy. When you're feeling that, like, oh my God, that triggers passion in you.
Right.
and you do whatever it takes. People love to say, oh, that passion fades. And it's like, no, you got to find ways to keep the passion, because people give up on love all the time. Passion is what makes you stay when the going gets tough. Passion is what makes it. It's that thing of, oh my God, yeah, I feel like I can't live with him right now, but I also can't live without him, in terms of that
Yes.
chemistry and that
Connection.
yumminess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so passion, I believe, is what makes us stay. It's what makes us stay in the business when it's failing and
Mm.
push through the hard
Yes.
times. It's so important for all of that. So there's numerous ways that we can ignite passion if we're not feeling it. Do a 180 in your life somehow. Go on a trip. For a lot of single women, they give up on online dating so quickly. They get a few frogs. Well, of course, there's frogs out there. You've now got the whole world at your fingertips through the internet. Are you going to meet some loons? Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
of course.
But it's, if that causes you to give up, you're obviously not that committed to wanting to have someone in your life. Like, you can't give up when the going gets tough.
Yes.
And we're telling the universe the whole time what we want. And when we just throw our hands up and go, everybody's a crazy out there, and I just want to meet someone organically and blah, 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 you're telling the universe that I don't really want this so much. We got to just go for things in our life, right? That the beautiful poem by Mary Oliver, Moments. You're not in chains, are you? Your heart is beating, isn't it? You're not in chains, are you? There's nothing more pathetic than caution when headlong might save a life, even possibly your own. And I just think that's some of the most powerful
That
stuff
is
ever
very
written.
powerful.
Yeah, it starts out with something along the lines of, you may be called to tell someone you love them or give your money away, all of it. And then she says, your heart is beating, isn't it? You're not in chains, are you? There is nothing more pathetic than caution when headlong might save a life, even possibly your own. And I would say most
Wow.
definitely your own.
Yes.
And that's Mary Oliver's Moments. And I try to, it's something I have on my board, and I remind myself of it daily. We need to be headlong in life. Rumi said, gamble everything for love if you are a true human being. Half-heartedness does not reach into majesty. And yet we're so afraid of making mistakes, of being hurt, of all this, that we live half-hearted lives. So take a risk.
It's the fear, right?
Yes, risk is one of the instantaneous best ways to develop some passion in your life. Calculated, not stupid risk. I always tell people, be responsible, not sensible.
Right.
So don't be sensible in your life, because that will be a boring, riskless, passionless life. But be responsible. In other words, make sure you don't hurt anybody else or yourself if you can possibly help it. And but go and be the opposite of sensible, and take a little risk in your life, and you will spark some passion.
Spark some passion. How about the married people? So why is it important for there to be a healthy sex life in marriage, and what makes a healthy sexy relationship, and what is a huge stumbling block? Because that often happens as the marriage goes through different stages.
It definitely does, Paul. You're right, and it's difficult when we're going through these stages and we feel like the connection is pulling away or something. Oh my gosh, is this going to be forever now that we're no longer having sex and all of this? And it does become that way if it becomes the gorilla in the room that no one talks about. I'm always amazed at couples who've slept in the same bed for the last 15 years. And 12 of those years, they haven't had sex and they haven't talked about it. It's like a gorilla in the room, and it's absolutely shocking to me. And so communication is absolutely key in that fact. But acceptance of those seasons is important. It's not like, oh my God, this shouldn't be happening. I've got kids and I've got a job and now I'm not having sex. And it's just, don't add to your anxiety. Accept the season. Everything is seasons anyway. And it's like, okay, so there's a little ebb and flow going on here. It's not the end of the world. I love him, I'm committed to him, or I love her, I'm committed to her. And we're gonna figure this out. It's all gonna be fine. Don't put the extra pressure on yourself. And communicate about it. hey, my love, you know I find you the sexiest man on earth. I'm just absolutely exhausted tonight after working a full day and having the kids crying, and but I just love you up, and just like kiss him and tell him he's sexy, and that's it. But we don't
Yeah.
even do that.
That's what my biggest thing I always say with, with couples, it's like sometimes it's not even just number one, I feel like when couples stop having sex for a while, then it just becomes a habit. Like it becomes normal, and it's just it's like it has to be like a special occasion or something to have sex. It's just becomes a normal part of your married life. And so if you break that routine, that's the key. And then the other thing is you can, if there is no energy for sex, you're exhausted, you might have a headache, but there's always intimacy can be part of your regular day-to-day life. And to me, that's even more important. Like just to like hold hands, cuddle, give each other a kiss, give each other a compliment. It might be a nice, text if you haven't seen them all day. Things like that, just to remind each other that, why we fell in love, why are we together? What's the point of all of this? And the craziness of everyday life, right?
Yes,
So,
I love that. I mean, I think you've said it all there beautifully. Very true. I also think that occasionally we have to suck it up for the case of the
yes.
relationship, right? So there's times where I've just not been in the mood for an extended period
Maybe a
of time.
glass of wine.
See, some people will be shocked to hear that I'm not in the mood all the time, but there are times when I've not been in the mood for an extended period. I've got something on my mind and whatever, and I can tell he's starting to get really antsy about it. And so I'll just say, I can't, like, when he wants it in the morning on a weekday and my mind is on work, I can't be thrown by that. And if I have an orgasm first thing in the morning, my whole day is messed. For some reason, I cannot be a productive operator in business if I've just had an orgasm. Go figure. I mean, I can coach and everything, but I can't create. It saps my creative energy.
Which is so funny because I think it's opposite for the men. Like that's their stress releaser. That's where how they get their energy. And that's why morning is such a big deal.
Yes, isn't that the truth? But for me, I wanted the end of the day. It's like something to look forward to, and it motivates me all day to look forward to it and stuff. And then they come home, they're all tired. And so one has to be a little creative. And so the other day I just said to him, I said, "Oh, baby, I'm so not bad." I said, "Would you like a hand job?" And he loves my hand job. So he'll say, sometimes he'll go, "No, I want more than that." And I'll be like, "That's all I'm offering right now." And I'll sort of tease him, and then the next thing you know, he'll want it. So or I'll just say a quickie, right? I mean, oftentimes I'll consent to a quickie even if I'm not in the mood, because I do believe, to your original question about why is sex so important, nothing bonds us to one another quite like that.
Yeah.
Sexual intimacy is the ultimate in creating that bond and strengthening it. And to think that it doesn't is doing a great disservice and really putting a relationship in jeopardy. It's super, super important. And I believe it needs to be a priority in a relationship. And doesn't mean you have to constantly be doing it, but you need to be teasing a little bit and communicating about it if you're not doing it and stuff like that. It needs to be that spirit of sexual
I
play
think
needs to be alive as
flirting, I
well.
think a lot of times married
Yes.
couples completely forget how to flirt.
Oh,
So I think if
totally.
you just do a little bit of that, that will even just put you in the mood and just will spice things up. But we're always just like so. I mean, what do you notice in your experience right now? What is the biggest problem plaguing couples when it comes to like intimacy or sex? Like, what do they come complaining to you about? Just busy life or just not in the mood or
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it before, is that it becomes a habit, right? And the next thing you know, it's the norm, and then it becomes this giant thing in the room that no one wants to talk about because it's become this giant
yeah.
problem. And it's like this huge wall is grown between them, even though they're sleeping in the same bed
Yes.
and running the same life. It's so
I think the longer
unbelievable.
you go, that gorilla becomes bigger, Jacquie, right? So it's like, okay, we
Yes.
haven't had sex for like 3 weeks, or like somebody has been ill, something happened. you were on a business trip, and then it becomes bigger. Now it's 4 weeks. Now it's 5 weeks. Now it's 6 weeks. And it's very difficult for one person to be like, okay, like we need to get rid of the gorilla.
Yes, it really is. And it only takes one person. So I would say if somebody feels like, yeah, but I mean, it takes two to tango. No, no, you can actually most of the time shift everything by just shifting your attitude. You know what Wayne Dyer used to always say, when you change the way you look at the world you look at changes.
Yes, yes,
When you change the way you look at a person or to your spouse, the spouse you look at changes. It happens like magic. When we change our own attitude,
yeah,
we don't have to worry about them. They will change naturally
yes.
based on our shifting in
It's so
attitude.
true.
Yeah.
Because they can feel our energy, right? Like
Yes.
immediately, if they're coming and they're trying to flirt or do something, and you're kind of like, wait, like I have to cook dinner, I have this, I have to take care of this, they just immediately go, okay, like, this is not a good energy. I'm not feeling it. And it just turns everything off.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, so one person can shift things for sure. And for women, I mean, yeah, so you haven't communicated about it for a while. Maybe just, I don't know, take your bra off while the two of you are having dinner and swirl
Yeah.
it around and throw it in the air,
Can you
or
imagine?
right?
My
I
husband
mean,
would freak out. Like, are you okay? And so, but I guess the biggest thing is it's like, like we talked about the seasons. I mean, there's like, the years where we have the childbearing years, and we have the kids, and we have toddlers running around, and we're trying to potty train and nurse. And then by the time we catch our breath and they're grown up, it's like all of a sudden, next thing you know, it's like we're hitting menopause. Like now the kids are gone, and now we have to
yeah.
deal with all the stuff that's going through all the body changes and the sweating or the headaches. and
Oh,
and then by
yeah.
the time we get that situated, it's like, oh, the kids are all gone and we're empty nesters, and we haven't been connected. Now how in the world are we going to connect when all these years it's been about the kids, about this, about that, about building our life, and now we have our life and everything's good and financially we're stable, but we have no idea what to do with each other because we've spent so many years like living together but really disconnected. I think that's the challenging part, is to go through those stages and still somehow try to keep that spark,
Oh, yeah.
the passion, even if it's a little bit here and there, so that by the time you get to that empty nesters, you're not so far apart from each other. Because I hear that happening a lot with couples.
Yes, and it makes perfect sense when you think about it. All those things, I mean, that's very difficult. And then when you emerge the other side, you've got no estrogen, progesterone, or testosterone
There
left
we go. That's
anyway.
another
So
problem.
you're not horny at all. I mean, you got all the time in the
Now you
world.
got
The
to figure
kids are
out how
gone.
do you even get into the mood and get horny and
I
get,
know.
it's, I
I
mean, but
know.
one thing that you said, I think I read in one of your blogs, it was basically prioritizing our life, like as far as the marriage goes and the kids. And I know we as moms are all guilty of this. What do we do? Who do we prioritize first? It's like the children, then maybe the husband, and then us at the end. But I know that you had stated, which I really loved, how you need to make sure that the husband is always number one, because
Your
that's the
relationship.
foundation of your marriage. So if you can kind of
Yes.
talk about that a little bit more.
Yes, your relationship needs to be number one, because you can prioritize everybody else and the relationship falls apart and you hurt them all in the process. So it is yourself, and your relationship needs to be on the front burner, and prioritizing that. And it's not about, well, the kids need me 7 days a week, and you're just relegated to the back thing. Otherwise, it is going to break up, or you are going to find yourself perfect strangers living under the same roof. And so I have seen the most incredible couples that they prioritize that relationship, and they prioritize their sexual relationship. They don't just hold hands. They make sure that if they're not having sex, that they find a way to reconnect, to make it a priority, to put it on the agenda if you need to. But it is so important, because that relationship has got to be nurtured in order for all your other relationships to be good and for you to be good, right?
Yeah, it's the foundation of
Hmm.
the whole marriage. And it's like when the parents are happy, it trickles down to the kids and the kids are happy. Like I know
Yes.
as much as like I have two, like I have an 18-year-old and 16-year-old. Yes, if I'm like cuddling with my husband, they look at each other like, ew, disgusting, TMI or whatever. But in the end, I know they're happy. Like if instead if I was fighting with him or like we were distant, they would be like, what's wrong? What's wrong with you guys? And they would stress about it. So as much as they make the faces and get grossed out supposedly, inside I know they have that warm fuzzy feeling like, oh my gosh, like my parents love each other and they're intimate together and hopefully one day I can maybe have similar relationships. So it makes a huge difference to do that.
Yes, it totally does. And they're just being kids, but you're right. If they were faced with the opposite, they
Yeah.
would definitely be miserable. And so yeah, I know you're so right. It's but just back to your thing of when that does happen, how do you deal with it after you've dealt with all of this stuff and now you find yourself kind of like strangers coming out the other side as empty nesters? I think a sense of humor and humor is one of the greatest things to utilize in life in relationships and to just make jokes about it with one another so that it lightens the whole environment and
Hmm.
then you can have conversations. Women tend to go, we need to talk about this, and men when they hear that go whoop, clam
They're
up,
terrified.
right? Those are like the ultimate in fighting words. And so I'm always like, use your feminine
No, it's so
wiles.
true. Now that you say that, I feel like I do that a lot. Like I'm like, okay, can you come here? I need to talk to you about something. And he just like, their lights go up, and he's like, what? What did I do?
Exactly. So yeah, I always just think use your feminine wiles, flirt with him a little bit, have a little fun, and then you can introduce things in a fun way because sense of humor, using humor and communication are the only ways to deal with that kind of empty nest thing when you both aren't really having sex, but you'd like to kind of get back to it. That's the way to do it. It's open, honest communication, but in a light-hearted way, not in a like, oh my God, this is needs to,
Yeah, like an
right?
argumentative or accusing the other person, like you're not doing this, you're not meeting my needs. And I feel like that makes a huge difference. Like
Oh
rephrasing the
yeah,
way you speak to them and say, I'm feeling a little bit alone and I feel like you're not connecting with me instead of like, you're not doing this, you're not being there for me. Because the minute you do that with a man or even vice versa, you just become very defensive, right?
yeah.
And it
Uh,
leads to into an argument.
yes, and even without saying I'm feeling alone, and when you do this or whatever, an even better way is to pay them a compliment first.
Okay.
So whenever you've got a big issue in a relationship with a man, especially, is to pay them a compliment whereby they feel appreciated. When a man feels appreciated, he'll give you the world. So that's just something to always remember. And I always teach, and I was taught this and have used it very effectively in my own relationships, is to say, I love you and I appreciate what you do for me and our family so much. And you say that often, and you will have a man who will want to do everything for you and give you the world. And when you are approaching something that needs a talk, you approach it in a similar way. My darling, I love you so much. You're so, and I just wanted to maybe, chat about this or whatever. Now he's open. You've just told him how
Mhm.
much you love him and appreciate him. And it's a very different conversation. So that's what I would always suggest when you are approaching a man with a chat.
I love that. That's really good advice because I feel like a lot of men, you're right, their language of love is really like affirmation, like telling them like you're doing a great job, you're doing so much for our family, and that just like
Yes,
boosts them up and they feel like okay, all the hard work I'm doing, at least it's getting noticed, and that could be their, biggest turn on because they feel confident and it feels good
totally.
as a man of the house.
Yes, that can be a life-changing thing to
Yes.
incorporate that into your relationship.
I love it. I'm going to take that. I'm going to listen to you.
Oh, good.
My husband will love you. So
Oh,
my
that's
gosh, I
good.
have enjoyed our talk so much. But to sum up, I mean, today we've actually delved into the profound significance of passion. When we cultivate a passion for life, intimacy, and creativity, we awaken a sense of confidence and empowerment within ourselves. In this journey, we begin to forge a deep connection with our souls, recognizing that our first relationship must really be with ourselves and our purpose. This inner alignment sets the stage for success across all facets of our lives, including our pursuit of passion and external expressions of love. It prompts us to reflect on the state of our relationships, particularly our intimate ones. Our sexual intimacy often serves as a barometer revealing the depth of connection or disconnection of partnerships. Throughout life's various stages, just like we talked about, from the demands of childbearing to the hustle of parenthood, we may inadvertently lose touch with the spark that once ignited our relationships in the first place. We forget the simple gestures like sharing a morning coffee or exchanging a kiss amid the busyness of life that we all have. Yet, it's crucial to carve out the time for those moments of connection. As we transition into empty nesters, we face the reality of a relationship's foundation. It's time to reassess and prioritize our connection with our spouse above all else, even our children. So, Jackie, it has been amazing having you on my show today. I've learned a lot. I feel like I've already grown a lot. And I hope our listeners are in the same situation. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us today?
Gosh, Phil, I just want to thank you. I have to say I've given a lot of interviews over the years, and this is probably your questions and your thoughtful questions and the amount of thought you put into your intro and your outro and everything is just really extraordinary. So thank you for that. I mean, I think you really honor the work you do, and it's so obvious to those of us looking in. And I so thank you. I
Oh my gosh, you
appreciate
gave me
you.
goosebumps. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
it's just lovely to see, and so I'm very grateful to have been a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have to say, your beautiful ring matches my outfit really well.
Ah,
I was
yes.
admiring it. Thank you so much.
Oh,
All the links will be in my show notes. Thank you.
beautiful. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today to Female Fluence. Together, we can influence and motivate other mind like females. Your job is to feel alive, be in control, and always be true to your own self. Please don't forget to subscribe so you can continue feeling inspired. All the links and notes from this episode will be posted on my website, femalefluence.com. Don't forget to also follow me at Female Fluence on both Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, if you are in need of a woman empowerment life coach to help you identify the barriers that keep you from living the life you seek, please send an email to info@femalefluence.org. Remember, my friends, don't just exist, but live your life to the fullest. I'm your host, Pearl Mashur. Until we talk next time.